right, so we've got just the insane amount of just absolutely related events, and of course, a lot of folks have their head in the sand. Russia deploys the largest non-nuclear bomb in Ukraine. Now, remember, we actually talked about them making the largest non-nuclear bombs and how they actually expanded in Russia to not only make these, but to mass produce these. And when that happened, we talked about how were they actually preparing to use these on Ukraine, but by the numbers that they were trying to generate, were they actually preparing for NATO? It says newly released footage shows Russian forces striking a Ukrainian town using what a pro-Kremlin source has said that is one of the most potent non-nuclear weapons in the world. On Tuesday morning, videos began circulating on Russian and Ukrainian media of a vacuum bomb. Now, just to explain how a vacuum or a thermobaric weapon works, it can be fired from a rocket launcher, something like this, or actually, I don't know about these. These are the largest, so I don't know exactly how they fire it. But about 100 feet above the ground, a first charge creates a cloud of highly flammable aerosol fuel. Again, a second charge ignites the aerosol cloud and creates a huge shockwave. Air rushes in towards the explosion, creating a vacuum. And then the explosion creates a blast wave of significantly longer duration than that of conventional explosives, which I just thought it was interesting that they basically say this is bigger, and this is a lot different than conventional. Because later on in the show, we're actually going to talk about how Iran is talking about unconventional responses if something happens. Unconventional being, a T attack, unconventional being EMP, unconventional possibly like they just got some thermobaric vacuum bombs from somebody. We don't know yet, but I guess we will see. Now, on Tuesday morning, of course, the videos all came out, and if you want to watch those videos, by the way, you can actually go over to marfooglenews.com, and you will find those on our website. Again, in the video, the explosion can be seen descending from the top right corner of the screen, exploding in the already derelict city and damaging the surrounding buildings. The pro-Ukrainian Telegram channel shared the video, but said that the munition was a ODAB 3000 thermobaric bomb, and that the use of a more powerful explosive was a lie spread by Russists. It said that Ukrainian term used to refer to members and backers of the Russian armed forces. A thermobaric or vacuum explosive draws in oxygen to generate intense high-temperature combustions. So, as far as this goes, this is something that could be far bigger than we think, especially if they're mass producing it, and they just built all of these factories to make tons and tons and tons of these. Who are they actually going to use them against? So we're going to talk about this and so much more. We're going to talk about the unconventional response they're talking about and what we think that is in just a second. We'll be right back right after this. Nothing in this show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, I want to point out there was actually a comment that said my Chase Bank today had a glitch where we could not finish any of our transactions. I just think I don't know, man. I think that something is definitely going on. With you know, I shared the T-Mobile and Comcast internet thing that happened here at the exact same time. All of our cell phones from 4 different plans. AT&T was one, 2 were T-Mobile, and then one was a prepaid that was basically a version. My daughter's phone is like a prepaid. But all of them went out at the same time. If you missed those shows, you can go back for the last week, and if you watch every night, you already know what I'm going to say. But everything went out at like 11:42, I think it was, and everything. It is very strange to lose your internet and your cell phones, especially when you have multiple people that have family plans from 20 years back. You've got somebody that has a prepaid phone that they bought across state lines. I mean, it just is very, very odd. So that means that there was something going on with the towers. Well, I found out the towers, basically, once your cell phone sends the message to the tower, not to space, it goes through, of course, an optical line. And if that optical line was cut, that means that the information was cut in the optical line. That also goes to your Comcast internet. But that happened, and there was no there wasn't a great explanation for it. Just a few days later, Verizon has the same thing, and the exact same thing happened. Now, mind you, there wasn't big articles about what happened to T-Mobile and what happened here. And just a few days later, as you guys saw, all of mainstream media covered this Verizon outage, which said and matched my story from 3 days prior. So, and it did feel kind of good. There was a bunch of comments saying, yeah, right, that didn't happen. And then 3 days later, the exact thing happened to Verizon. And I'm surprised nobody covered it. And then you're having issues with Bank of America yesterday, having these huge glitches. Or actually, over the last couple of days, people have not been able to access their banks. And we are still talking to people that cannot see their balance. There is somebody that said that they should have their life savings, $13,000 in the bank, and they said that they have gone every time. They've even called, and on the automated system, the balance says 0. So that is terrifying. If you think about it, if your life savings in the bank, you go to your app and all of a sudden it's gone, you're going to think, I got ripped off, somebody snatched my social security number or something, or I just was a victim of identity theft. But you call up the bank and they basically say, oh, no, it's fine. It's just our glitch. This is the problem. They want us all to get over to digital. They want us all to have everything absolutely dependent on someone else. And that is the whole thing about us as a community. We're preppers, and we also want to. It's funny because they always talk about sustainable living, but they don't want us to be sustainable in our own lives. As far as we should be able to do things, even if we lose power, if we lose all of these things we take for granted, if we lose all of these things that are run by somebody else, then we should be able to survive on our own. And really, it shows how, as a people, how far we have come and how far we have become dependent on the technology that reigns over us. All right, and thank you, Julie C., Jammer, Randy Man, Lori Smith. What is going on? What happened to me in 1996, and it took a bank a week to find my money. Oh, that's scary. Lisa Carden, amen, Adam, amen. Hey, nice to see you, Lisa. Ian Jones, Brian Knight, Jalisa H., Arthur Rankin, and so many more. Thank you, guys. Make sure to thank your mods in the chat by dropping an M right now for all of your awesome mods. Speaking of awesome, let's bring in my co-host / internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Hello, Adam, and hello, Foogle fam. I'm doing just fine.
Now, let's do a quick update because the last 2 days we've talked about the dock workers strike. We did get a recent update. This is somewhat breaking. The dock workers have put a pause. So their strike is not over, but it is paused, and they are actually supposed to go back to work temporarily to actually negotiate some, I guess, differences of opinion on their pay. Now, they have received some sort of automatic, they basically gave them a $4 raise, I think it is, which seems like a lot, but it isn't really anymore. I worked at a job where I was getting 25-cent raises, every 3 months. to get a $4 raise all at once is pretty cool. But in today's economy, it's like, oh, now I can almost afford a box of Ritz. But Dex, I guess this is good news if it keeps going in this direction, because it didn't last long. If this pause continues and they say, okay, we're good, and they go back to work, because this was horrifying if it wasn't.
There's no guarantee. They came to a tentative idea of what they want. But they've got to negotiate it out. And what they did was they took the existing contract that expired on Monday and extended it to January 15th. So by extending that, it basically suspends the strike. So keep that in mind. It can still happen again. So if they don't come to an actual resolution of what they want and what they expect to get out of this, then this can all happen again. And we better, be prepared, better prepared than we were this go round. You saw everybody panic buying. And I think people ought to be thinking about how can they make sure they're in a position where they're not having to panic buy because of the port closures.
First of all, the whole panic buying thing in the first place shows you how many people are not prepared. It shows you that people do not react well to any kind of bad news from MSM. It shows you how many people just instantly kind of buy into any kind of hype. And just imagine if you are one of probably many of us that believe that there is some sort of, bigger plan going on here. Think about really all they have to do to cause havoc is to make a mistake. To accidentally put out, 3 or 4 big articles by the respected MSMs that say, oh, the bank system's about to fail, or we are headed to systematic collapse or something. They say, oh, well, it was based on a study, and actually the study says that we're not going to do it. But it doesn't matter. If something goes out like that, people will immediately believe it. I mean, they believe everything the MSM says. As far as the strike, I already saw in the first 24 hours, everybody had crazy theories, including I talked to Fugel fam that were working there. There's a lot, 45,000 people. Some were suggesting that all 45,000 of these people are in, and I'm not kidding, not just a couple of these people, but they were all doing it to cover up the stuff that's coming in the containers. That there were wee ones in this. That does happen. That happens all the time. They've opened those containers. They've caught those people. But yeah, I'm sorry, and I'm in this community, but I think that was a little bit overboard. There are some weird connections, though, that some of the kind of diggers online found, and they were digging into different things about different ports, but that doesn't apply to all of them. So I don't know. I don't always buy into some of the just on-the-spot theories that come out, but I think without those on-the-spot theories, we don't have freedom. Like, we should be able to make our on-the-spot freedom or theories. And if you want to believe them in the first 24 hours, go ahead. But usually, I think it's best to wait and see what's going on. People don't believe that they're fighting automation. I don't know why. Everything is going to be automated in the near future. And I actually talked to a Fugel fam member. They said that they are trying to automate everything. They are trying to take humans out of the equation. They want machines that can virtually do everything. And we're talking about massive machines that can lift, 4-ton containers. So automation is a huge deal, and it is going to be a giant debate in the future. Heck, I don't think artists, I don't know if there is an artists union about painters or this or that. I know in every other field there's a union, but it's like artists are basically getting thrown to the wayside right now with AI and DALL-E and things like that. But imagine all of the physical jobs, all of the longshoremen and things like this. There were people that described that they took video of the actual docks, and they said, look over there. This is where now everything is automated in that area. And this is where, this position used to work, this top loaders, this position used to work down there, but now they've replaced those positions. So it really is horrible for humans in general that all of this is happening. And then, Dex, let's talk about the Israeli military says infantry, armored units joining Lebanon ground operation. They're calling it a ground operation. Some are calling it an invasion.
And they like to continue highlighting that it's a limited and localized in scope, but now they're moving in more troops. They're bringing in specific armored units in the infantry and armored units into these ground positions. So I think when we first reported, there were tanks going in as well. So the military said that the regular infantry and armored units were joining the ground operations in southern Lebanon, but said they would remain limited in localized in scope. They had said Tuesday the commando and paratroop units had crossed a short distance over the border in the first publicly announced ground operation. So then they've added these troops in. I think we may see it grow even further. They have a goal in mind. Their goal is to stop and remove and eliminate the weapons that are being used to be thrown over the border there at the northern territories, and even going so far as even to Tel Aviv, that are causing people to not live in those locations in Israel. So that's what they've stated is their goal, is to make sure everyone can move home, get back to their homes, and get back to a normalcy, if there is such a thing when you have to live with an iron dome above you to protect you from potential rockets. So, of course, the other side will have a different story to say, which they all have. Everybody from Iran to even Erdogan in Turkey wanting to support the opposition side to Israel, specifically with what they say is the atrocities that have happened in the Strip and other things. So this is a hotbed. It's going to continue. It doesn't seem like anything's stopping. We're waiting for the response. They talked yesterday about potentially going after oil fields. Oil prices went up, etc. So if that's going to happen, that's going to be a bad thing, I think, for everybody in the world.
And you know, people are calling it an invasion. I'm just waiting for like Netanyahu or Bibi to come out and, you know, almost like Mr. Evil and say, I think we'll call it a special military operation. And then somebody's going to be like, Putin did that. Drop him in the shark tank. Sir, we couldn't afford sharks. Sharks have gone up 75% since Biden's been in office. Biggest solar flare since 2017 erupts from the sun, and Earth is in the firing line. Now, if you watch Wages World, you would already know this. Wages is on top of it. And I'm not exaggerating when I say Wages, the second that he gets this stuff, he texts it. And I'll actually read his text real quick, because he always updates me right when it happens. Before he updates his channel, he updates his friends, which is another reason to subscribe to Wages. He says, biggest X flare in years, radio blackouts in hurricane disaster areas. Isn't that just handy right there? Intense aurora and satellite disruptions and corrections. This could give us a big hit, enough to cause some grid issues. Please share this one. See ya in chat. Again, Wages, if you're here, thank you for doing that. And as far as the size of it, this is the biggest flare since 2017, and it's headed right at us. The sun has just unleashed the most powerful solar flare this cycle, colossal X-class eruption. The X9.05 solar flare peaked at 8:10 a.m. Eastern, triggering shortwave radio blackouts over Africa and Europe, the sunlit portion of Earth at the time of eruption. So we'll end up seeing if there's any effects, and it is expected to hit Earth between October 3rd and October 5th, possibly triggering widespread auroras. So I do hope that people are waking up to the fact that this is the maximum peak. We have had one solar flare after another, And because of Diddy and EpiPen and all of these other stories that are out right now, and because of the multiple conflicts around the earth, people really don't pay attention to this stuff. But this community has followed this for years. And if you are paying attention, you will know it has been an exciting time if you follow the solar activity. It's been one thing after another, after another, after another. So have a plan just in case something does happen. This one, I'm hoping that it's just a smaller one. It is still the largest class, but it's not, the big one. The big one is coming, in my opinion. It is a matter of when. It is not a matter of if. And before we move on, make sure to go check out EMP Shield. This is your defense against it. So if we do have a massive solar flare or a Carrington level event, you can actually protect against it with an EMP Shield. This will actually keep your car running through not only a Carrington level event, but with an EMP strike from an adversary. This will also help defend you against a non-nuclear EMP. Those are the devices that they're talking about in possible backpacks. Now, we're actually going to get into it later in the show, but Iran is now threatening unconventional responses, and some actually believe that they're talking about attacks and possibly smaller events with something that really hasn't been seen on a bigger scale yet. Go to marfooglenews.com/EMP. It only takes a couple minutes to put in your car, and you'll be protected. Make sure, again, to use that code MARF to end up getting $50 off per device, and that stacks on top of any sale that they are running. Dex, let's talk about Japan's new leader pushes nuclear weapons in controversial Asian NATO.
Well, their hawkish Prime Minister, Shigeru Ishiba, has called for an Asian version of NATO. Now, this is not new news. We've talked a lot about this. A lot of the actions that have happened over the last year have sort of looked as if there was an Asian NATO, so to speak, forming, as well as the fact that Japan had been invited out to NATO, had been participating with NATO, and working much closer. But he is getting much more verbal about it, to say countering the rising threats of the cooperation now that's happening between China, Russia, and North Korea. Recent years have seen an uptick in the bilateral defense cooperation between U.S. and Japan and other regional partners, and what the current administration has dubbed the lattice work of security architecture. So what's also been interesting, though, and I know we've seen this in some prior reports, they were actually saying that Washington wasn't so hot on jumping into this whole notion of an Asian NATO. So I don't know if that was just lip service coming from certain talking heads there to diminish this, but the fact that the Prime Minister now of Japan is sort of demanding it, and also talking more about nuclear, and specifically what is important to them from a nuclear perspective. They went on to call for reimagining the U.S. nuclear posture. I love that word, reimagining. I wish they never started that nonsense. But amid Russia's deepening military ties with North Korea. So, they are claiming that Russia's transferred nuclear technology to North Korea. Japan does not have nuclear capabilities, just like South Korea doesn't have it. They rely solely on the U.S. to protect them for that. So to some extent, I think they're now looking for more deterrence against North Korea's capabilities, since it's no longer a joke that North Korea might have nukes. It seems much more plausible that they have significant capabilities now.
Yeah, and this is Japan saying, Ukraine today is Asia tomorrow. This is what I suggested that they were thinking 2 or 3 years ago. Japan thinks that they're next, that they're after Taiwan, that they're going to come for Japan. Do they have real information that their intelligence or U.S. intelligence or somebody has that isn't shared with the public? Is China actually preparing to take Japan after Taiwan? I mean, if you were going to invade a place and get in a war with a massive country like the U.S., you would think that you would want to take a little bit more than everybody thinks you're going to take. But who knows? Maybe they'll do a special military operation. And how CIA is using viral recruitment videos to reach spies in China, North Korea, and Iran. The CIA launched a new drive to hire potential spies in China, Iran, and North Korea after a similar successful campaign to recruit Russians. The CIA posted instructions in Mandarin, Korean, and Farsi on Wednesday for individuals in these countries to be able to, quote, securely contact the agency. Encouraged by the success of a similar campaign in Russia, CIA officials are attempting to reach out to dissatisfied individuals amid China's broadening cooperation with Russia and Iran. The organization said that it posted instructions across social media channels like Telegram, Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube to allow people to contact the CIA direct via public or dark websites. It says, we want to make sure that individuals in other authoritarian regimes know that we're open for business, a CIA spokesman said in a statement. Dex, what do you think China thinks of this? It's like, we're basically openly telling the Chinese people, like, hey, you want to be a spy, putting that out there and then giving them a way that they can contact. You would think that China itself would have somebody, a double spy, call it and say, yeah, I want to work with you guys.
How much more difficult does it make to vet this when you publicly say, here's the front door, just, knock and send a message in, and we'll believe who you are. Now, I mean, they're not necessarily saying that, but now they have to vet these people and vet that the information they're getting is valid and that the person is really interested in performing for the CIA in a way that they want them to, as opposed to, as you described, being a double and saying what their adversaries want to be fed into that organization. So I don't know. It doesn't sound. They claim to have success with Russia. I don't know. It just seems fishy to me.
Now here's a really interesting part about this article, and it kind of gives us a thought process here. China, Russia, North Korea, and Iran are known as the hard targets countries where governments have made it difficult for other nations to penetrate to gain insights into their workings or access other intelligence. You know why? These nations block access to U.S. social media platforms such as Facebook, deeming them unfavorable to government. However, VPNs and other tools serve as a way to get around this censorship and surveillance. Yet, the point of those VPNs is so they can get to our Facebook, so Facebook can surveil them. Isn't it funny that they're hard to get any intelligence from, that China is actually keeping their secrets? We're not. And that is because they don't allow websites like Facebook. Think about it. We are the ones being monitored, not them. Isn't that sad? They're putting out public and like literally PSAs like, hey, by the way, join the CIA. All they need to do is join Facebook, right? I mean, I think it's absurd. Dex, did you say something?
No, but I think this whole thing is kind of absurd. But it's their policy. If they think they can make it work, they can make it work. I mean, it's no different than getting a tip line from the public, and you will get tips, and you will get a bunch of bad tips that you have to weed through. So you're gonna have to get a whole bunch of bad spies that aren't really going to do what you want them to do, and you'll may or may not be able to figure them out.
Yeah. Well, like, we did get a Fugel family member, like, leave a message saying, hey, there's an asteroid. It's going to hit Earth and destroy the entire Western Hemisphere tomorrow. I think that was like 2 years ago. But, some of these tips are good, though. North Korea's Kim Yo-jong mocks Seoul military parade, downplays capabilities. Before we get to this, I do want to say thank you to Callie. Thank you so much for your support. And thank you, Trilicit. Says, love me. Trilicit, hey, thank you so much for popping in, and thank you for supporting. Renee Alera, it's nice to see you again, and thank you for not only stopping by, but thank you for continuing to pop in and support year after year. Again, thank you. Renee Alera, thank you, and thank you. And then Lindy Lou, I love all my Foogle fam. God bless us all. Well, thank you, and God bless you as well. Yeah, that made me think of earlier today. I'll tell you a story at the end, because it's gonna distract me. All right, it's about a gentleman who out of nowhere said, "God bless you," and it was just a really cool moment. And then Iran warns of unconventional response in case of new Israeli attack. Dex, do you want to start going over this? And this is just something about this just does not seem right, and it's kind of creepy, actually.
Well, yeah, certainly. The fact that they are now saying they're going to not do a conventional response this next go around. So we're waiting now for Israel to strike back, and they've said they were potentially targeting the oil. And Iran says, if you do something to us, whatever it's going to be, we're going to come after you in an unconventional response. And a lot of folks are suggesting that includes, and I guess they suggested it too, targeting infrastructure. Now, this needs to be coupled with the fact that they were broadcasting quite a bit last month that they had the capability with non-nuclear EMPs. Not only did they have it, they've had it for a while, but they've distributed it to their T groups in the other organizations there. So like in Yemen with the Houthis, and in Lebanon with Hez. One would assume that that would also mean the Hez group, which goes straight to Venezuela as well, would be able to bring those devices to other locations in the West, going from there up into the Americas, just as the ones in the Middle East can go up into Europe. So the question then becomes, where will, and if that's the device they're talking about, or if that's the type of unconventional attack they're talking about, as opposed to cyber, which would be, I don't say it's conventional, but it's more conventional and mainstream now than it has been in the past. 10 years ago, you might think cyber would be more unconventional, or 20 years ago, but now it seems to be more normal. So I that's how I'm interpreting it, but I think a lot of others are looking at it that way too. If they're going to do something that's extremely different than what's been done before, especially as it relates to infrastructure, I think that's important for them. They look at things like power. They've talked about making it go dark in Israel specifically. So that would be a very interesting take if they go down that route.
Or sleeper cells. And they also have made many comments. And what's really weird, if you read the all of the different world's news, you can look at one headline, and most of the United States and, of course, Western nations have basically copy and pasted and just kind of reorganize the words in ways, or sometimes they just straight up syndicate the articles throughout multiple different MSMs. But if you look at the different newses, there are things that the other newses in other countries that have covered that they just don't tell us about. Like they have actually reiterated that, they've talked about the U.S. a lot lately. And I see that they're always talking about Israel, but just like how Russia says, well, we're not just, attacking Ukraine. Ukraine is puppeted by the U.S. Iran believes that Israel and the U.S. are almost one right now. Lots of comments about this. So when you think about a response, it might not just be an unconventional response to Israel. It very well could be towards us as well. They know if it gets any bigger that they're going to be facing us as well. And they've probably already made calls to their best buds and their no limits partners, and they're getting ready for that. That is World War III. So, and before we move on, make sure to go check out Jace Medical. This is a really, really good service to have, especially now while you can still use it. This is a service where you can actually do a telehealth appointment through your phone, your tablet, or your computer from the comfort of your couch. You can actually talk to a board-certified doctor and get yourself not only, again, a 12-month extended supply of your prescription med if you go through Jace Daily, but you can also get something called the Jace Case. So they have two different plans, Jace Case and Jace Daily. That Jace Case has all of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics. Now, you may not need them right now, but if something happens, or again, if you do need them, modern medicine and modern antibiotics can be the difference of a cut on your finger to a funeral. So that Jace Case, having those in there for when hospitals aren't around, or if the pharmacies are down, or if there's a hack or everything is shut down, these will absolutely come in handy. Not to mention, you can add in things like, of course, albuterol. You can even add in iodine, and even that stuff that CNN absolutely did not want you to take. So go over and check it out, marfooglenews.com/Jace. Again, that's marfooglenews.com/Jace, and make sure to use the code MARF. And then Russia tested a nationwide emergency warning system. Now, was it just a test? Now, mind you, they have started doing this more recently, but now they're doing it twice a year. And we have covered every one of their odd drills. They've actually had almost everyone in Moscow, all of their residents go down into bunkers. They've been testing schools a lot. They've been, putting concrete barrier, kind of these different things throughout Russia because of the invasion. But they're actually keeping themselves basically oiled. They are testing their nationwide emergency system. So not only did TV and radios blast across the country, but they also had sirens blaring. Dex, what do you think about as far as Russia doing this? And many people here will say, well, it's just a test. Well, it really seems to me like they're perfecting their response to a potential event. And do they know something that we don't? Why are they practicing it so often? Are they getting ready for a potential event?
Oh, absolutely, they are. They prepare more. They have more bunker space for their citizens. They have prepared more with drills. When they do these tests, it's not just let's just send a nationwide broadcast on a single cell phone text just to say we're just testing. Are you there? Like we do here in the States. They go all out, and they do it for a reason, because they're preparing, and they know they're preparing for what's about to come, whether it's something they start or something that gets started upon them, as they claim the NATO nations are wanting to, draw Russia into a much more larger scale conflict. And when the first one launches a tactical, I think we're going to see, and everybody keeps saying it's going to be Russia, and it very likely could be. They could be backed into a corner where they have to, but I think that's going to be one crazy moment in time where we'll see how the rest of the nations are going to react and what's going to happen there in Russia itself. But yeah, they're preparing for this. They know it's coming.
It could also be North Korea that pulls the trigger to the bigger weapon. In my thought, if you're new here, I do not believe that these are all separate, takeovers of their neighbors. I think that they are all coordinating together. Afterwards, they're like, well, hey, if we all coordinate and do this together, we could actually split up the U.S. and Western nations up enough that we might actually have a chance. Somebody else probably said, well, what do we do, though? But then, they control the U.S. dollars. They can sanction us. So they told everybody, well, let's start hoarding now. Let's hoard wheat. Let's hoard corn. Let's hoard gold and natural resources and natural gas. and pharmaceuticals, and let's trade land with each other. Hey, Russia, let me grow the stuff that I usually get from the U.S. on your land, since you've got similar land, and in return, I'll let you grow your stuff on my land. They did that. Russia and China actually traded land, and they're basically saying you can own free chunks of land and grow whatever you need. In return, they're doing the same for their partner. All of them are going to go, oh, well, then the currency, how are we going to stop these dollars? Well, let's join BRICS and let's make a new currency. We don't need the petrodollar, especially when they're trying to take us off of petrol. And this may have something to do with a greater order of things that is happening and that has been planned for a very long time. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments down below. Like Cody, thank you. I live in Hazelhurst, Georgia. 7th day no power. It's bad. Cody, it's crazy because obviously Dex he was just right out of that. And it's like, look at the difference. If it missed you, your day as usual. If it didn't miss you, there's people like Cody sitting there with 7 days of no power. I really hope that they get your power on. I do feel for all of the people that are doing, all the linemen right now that are working to fix this, especially if some of the theories are true about how, a lot of people have their own theories on how this, was so devastating. Lindy Lou, I love all my Foogle fam. God bless us all. I'll tell you what, there's just, so I was short $45 for a bill. So I went to the ATM to put it into my account, and I put my card in and I put the deposit in, and it had problems. So it had problems accepting the $5 bill that I had. So it just kept spitting it back out. There was a guy next to me, big guy, hovered over me. And to be honest, I think first impressions, I would have thought this is a mean dude. He looks down and there's a bunch of receipts, and like he's got I'll just say it, he was dressed like a total gangster. He looks down at the receipts and he immediately goes down and picks them up. I'm like, oh, that's weird. And my brain went to think what? Why is he grabbing the receipts? Because everybody's receipts dropped down. And he grabs all the receipts, immediately turns around and throws them away. And I saw there was 2 receipts under me, and I smiled. I was like, that was cool. I'm picking up somebody else's receipts and throwing them away so somebody else doesn't pick them up. And I just thought it was really cool. This big dude is getting down and picking up the receipts and basically doing a favor for somebody else. And he didn't even think about it. But when he saw me do it, he smiled. And as he walked, he put his hand on my back and he said, God bless you. I said, God bless you as well. It was just a moment I haven't had in ever. Nobody says bless you anymore. Everybody's afraid to say it. I don't know. It was just, it made me feel so good. It made my day. And you don't have to be religious to see something like that and to just feel good about it. To see somebody, and to be honest, the world is so messed up. You think oh, are they trying to look to see if they can find something? It wasn't like he even looked at him. He just grabbed the whole pile and then threw him right away. Everyone judges, and everybody can pretend like they're perfect, but we all make these snap judgments. If somebody's got their pants halfway around their ass, I think, what are you doing, man? Go get a belt. You make these judgments in your head, but you never know what that person has inside, right? There are so many different kinds of people. There's so many different kinds of traumas that we've all gone through. So I thought it was a really cool midday event, and just thought I would tell you about it. Anyways, so that's my tiny stupid story. And then Dex, by the way, do you have friends in Georgia, or do you have friends in the hurricane path? And have you heard any updates from your personal friends about what is going on?
Yeah, I've got some people that school's still closed, power's still out. They're still cleaning up in there. They're nowhere near as bad as the Carolinas. The folks in the Carolinas are it's just unbelievable what's happened up there, Asheville and areas like that, and even over in Tennessee as well. But yeah, there's just the response, I think, is the biggest challenge. And there's also a lot of people that are making up stories too, which it's hard to tell if they're true or not. And that's unfortunate too, because there can be and they may not be. And that's, we're in this environment where there are outsiders or even insiders that want to change narratives or shift narratives or just make people look uncredible. And it's hard to deal with because you get so many of those right now, and you can't tell what's true and what's not.
Well, I have heard from somebody I do trust that they believe it is that the number of people that are going to end up perished is in the thousands, where it is at a couple hundred right now. And that is from the places, and maybe it's Asheville. There were a bunch of places that got hit, and people were still in their homes. They did not expect it whatsoever. It was so fast. Have you heard anything similar to that?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that are suggesting there's a lot more. There's a lot that hasn't been gone through, and and there's a lot of people that are holding up the ability for other people to come in potentially. But I believe that story a little bit more than some of the other ones too, that are having difficulties getting into areas to do recon or search and rescue, which at this point is getting kind of old for. But yeah. Hey, by the way, we do get a little bit more bless yous down here in the South than I think you do in Seattle. But all you gotta do is go to Chick-fil-A and you'll get one at Chick-fil-A every day. So
wait, from the employees?
Oh yeah, they always say it.
Are you kidding?
No,
they don't even say it here at our Chick-fil-A's.
Oh, come on.
Are they supposed to?
I don't know if they're supposed to, but they do, and they're closed on Sunday too.
Well, I know that the owners, and there's Hobby Lobby. There's some spots around here that, I mean, basically, and it wasn't always advertised. Like, I didn't know for the longest time, but when they end up closing on Sunday, you kind of figure it out, right? No, we have the Seattle freeze too, and I think it's real. I mean, I've lived here my whole life, and yeah, a lot of people do not say hi. And you can actually tell people from other states. I think the only people that are saying hello to each other, I've always said it, but I also kind of was half grew up in, I grew up in Yakima as well, and I grew up in a place where you were out, I mean, straight up, my dad was in a trailer park, so everybody said hi to each other. That was actually the friendliest place I was been, even though it was one of the worst. But here, I think the only people that are saying hi are the people that are plants from other from other states.
Yeah,
people just don't say hi.
I had to explain that to a lady from New Orleans who had just recently moved here. She's like, I don't understand why these people are rude, and I'm like, they're not from the South. Those are people from up north or maybe down in southern Florida, but they're not from around here because everyone around here is super nice. And she's like, well, and she started to pay attention. She goes, yeah, I guess you're right. I'm like, yeah, it's, the people who grew up here in the South are super sweet and nice, typically. Not everybody, but yeah. And I can see people from outside easily because they've got that either New York attitude or Seattle stare, as you call it, but it's funny.
Well, it's Seattle freeze.
Freeze, yeah. Freeze.
You just won't look at you. You don't exist. They walk past you. In fact, if you go down to where the homeless are, they're actually friendlier than the people that live anywhere down there. Like, even in the bar districts back when in my early 20s, when I used to go drink and have fun, people were really just not personable. There's a few far in between, but like we don't have the Southern hospitality, and I've always wanted to experience real Southern hospitality. I've heard so many stories, and especially from Foo family and even my own family, in different places where, somebody's out stuck, and a complete stranger actually helps them, and they don't worry about them helping. I did live when I lived on Orcas Island. That was one of the places, and it is technically Washington, and that place is the exact opposite. Everyone says hello. I don't know if it's still the same way, but it was a 5,000 person population. I was able to get to work every single day. There was no bus. I could just hitchhike. And I was like 16. I was 15, 16 years old, and I could just hitchhike, and there was no weirdness. I got a ride every day to work on the other side of the island. It was super easy. I just put my thumb out. The first car and every first car would pick me up and take me to work. Hey, I need the ride to there. And they'll be like, oh, I'm going to this point, and then I can drop you off there. Even if they couldn't get me all the way. Most people did. Most people would go out of their way to take me and then go back to where they were going. That's what I like about small towns. That's what I like about islands. A lot of islands. I don't know about all of them. But it's wholly different. And I wish... wouldn't it be great if the entire world acted like that? You want world peace, maybe just put us all in VR that tells us we're in a small island. I don't know. But yeah, it also helps that you have one video store, one grocery store, one gas station, one, whatever. Back then there was a video rental store. There was one of everything. So you got to bump into everybody. Everybody knew everybody. So it would be awkward if you didn't say hi. People would start talking about you if you didn't. We need to get back to that. All right. Thank you guys. And make sure to go check out the mods over at marfooglenews.com/friends. In the next 3 weeks, there's going to be endless craziness. And I truly believe, if you're new here, I believe by January, we're going to be in an entirely different place. So make sure to stay tuned. We will make sure to update you on anything crazy. And I'm sorry for the late shows. I've had a lot of stuff going on with my fam and my work. So thank you guys for being patient. Usually shows are supposed to be around 7. They've been at 8 and 9. And just, also having to, go back and forth, do work, do this, do work, do that. So thank you guys. I appreciate you. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, I just wanted to shout out Renee Alera. I don't know if it came across on your screen.
They did
see that one.
Did they do a third one?
Oh no, maybe I missed you saying it. I'm sorry. I just want to
Renee,
make sure
and the other thing is, Renee, you didn't even do a message. That's it. You just want to pop in. You don't want to be noticed. You're just like, hey, I just support, and that's even the cooler part about people like Renee. And there's a bunch of old school Foogle fam that stop in, they show love, and then they pop out. Cody, again, thank you. Lindy Lou, thank you. Thank you. Renee Alera, thank you. Callie, Trilicit, and everybody else that supported it, including everybody over on DLive, Pocoloco, Laura Griffith, Durango, Nubru, Kimbria, Skyhouse, and the rest of the crew. Thank you guys. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. Dex, thank you so much.
Much love. Great job, brother.
It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a special military operation. Shoutro! Verbo, Dion, Lindy, on